A phone vibrates in the dark. A single blue light spills across mahogany walls as thunder rolls over the skyline. Alexander Voss stares at the blinking notification. Final approval. Sovereign acquisition completed. He doesn't move. His eyes, hollow and unblinking, reflect a world map glowing red. Somewhere, a nation has just changed hands. Not through war, but wire transfer. The rain outside whispers like static, as if the city itself is trying to process what just happened. Voss murmurs, "A country for the price of a company?" He laughs once, dry, unbelieving. He built his empire on debt, promises, and precision. Now he owns something that was never meant to be owned. But beneath the quiet, a question claws its way to the surface when a man buys a nation who owns him. Dawn bleeds into the skyline. The news hits every screen before breakfast. Private investor finalizes nation-state buyout. Crowds gather outside banks, half in awe, half in fury. Some call it the future, others treason. Some call it the future, others treason. In a quiet cafe below the trading tower, Maya Chen scrolls the headline again and again. Once a journalist, now reduced to freelance briefs, she knows stories like this don't end in silence. They end in history. She records a voice memo. Day 1. The world just got sold. Her tone wavers between disbelief and curiosity, the same mix that fuels revolutions. The trading floor buzzes like a storm hive. Screens flicker with green and red. Voices rise, and somewhere, money mutates into myth. Brokers whisper the name Astera, as though it's a god returning from exile. Voss's acquisition has turned markets feral. Stocks tied to his funds skyrocket. Currencies stutter. One trader mutters, he didn't just buy a nation, he bought the narrative. The line spreads like wildfire. Far from the skyscrapers, in Astera's capital, streets breathe uneasily. The flag still flies, but the government building now bears a discreet plaque. Evos Global Property. Locals gather outside the gates, unsure whether to cheer or curse. A street vendor selling bread mutters, they say he'll fix everything. But no one fixes hunger with balance sheets. His daughter listens quietly, holding the day's first unsold loaf. Night again. Voss stands alone on his balcony, the city's reflection trembling below him. He has what no one else has ever dared to own, sovereignty as an asset. Yet beneath the victory, a shadow lingers. A nation cannot be bought without inheriting its ghosts, its debts, its hunger, its people. As thunder rumbles over the skyline, his assistant calls from inside. They're asking what comes next. Voss answers quietly. We begin operations, but his voice betrays something. A hesitation only power can afford. The announcement hits every trading hub by noon. Astera's national debt has been restructured overnight. A single entity, Voss Global Holdings, now guarantees the country's bonds. Panic melts into euphoria as markets surge. On every channel, analysts speak of a new model of sovereignty, but no one seems to notice what's missing. The Astera flag no longer flutters over its own stock exchange. Voss watches the frenzy from a glass-walled conference room unmoved. He knows this isn't ownership, it's leverage. And leverage, when pulled too tight, always snaps back. Maya Chen's article goes live. One man's country. It trends instantly, shared, dissected, debated. She describes not the deal, but the silence after. The pause in every newsroom where no one knew how to react. What happens, she writes, when borders are bought instead of defended? Emails flood her inbox, half admiration, half threats. She scrolls through them with calm detachment, sipping cold coffee. Somewhere between fear and purpose, she realizes she's found the story that could either make her career or end it. In Astera's capital, the first Voss global banners rise over government buildings. Employees line up to receive new ID cards stamped with the corporate seal. "You now work for the future," reads the slogan. But the faces in the queue are tired, uncertain. In the crowd, Luis Ortega watches from his bread cart, counting how many soldiers now wear suits instead of uniforms. He turns to Sofia and says softly, "A flag changes faster than a heart." She nods, holding a small coin bearing Voss's emblem, the only currency that still buys flour. Behind closed doors, the numbers don't add up. Astera's mineral reserves, Voss's prize, are smaller than projections suggested. His CFO warns of an impending liquidity issue, but Voss waves him off. "Markets run on belief," he says. "So long as they believe, we're solvent." Yet as he speaks, his reflection in the glass table trembles under the hum of the air vents. The illusion of control thins, revealing what even he fears. The moment belief collapses. By nightfall, a new crisis brews. In the streets of Astera, protests erupt, candles and banners beneath the shadow of glass towers. Maya arrives on the ground, her camera trembling as chants echo through the crowd. A man's voice shouts, "We sold our country for promises." Firelight flickers in her eyes as she whispers into a recorder. "This isn't about money anymore. It's about memory." Somewhere above, Voss watches live drone feeds of the same scene, face unreadable. Ownership has become a mirror, and every reflection shows something different. The numbers start whispering before anyone admits it aloud. Small tremors in the bond market, foreign investors quietly exiting Astera's securities. Whispers of a hidden deficit. Voss watches from his penthouse, reading the reports in silence. He knows collapse never starts with panic. It starts with hesitation. One paused transaction. One delayed payment. One truth buried under spreadsheets. His empire depends on faith. But faith is fickle when profit fades. He looks toward the horizon where the skyline glows gold and mutters, "We can't buy time. Not yet." Maya's latest article exposes what everyone suspected. The mineral reserves that justified the acquisition were inflated. She includes leaked documents, photos, and a single line that sets the world on fire. The empire was built on air. Within hours, international media pick up the story. Markets wobble, and Voss Global's valuation begins to hemorrhage. Maya sits in her hotel room in Astera, staring at the upload confirmation. The story is locked. For a moment, she feels the weight of her words, then hears sirens outside, and the feeling turns to fear. In Astera's ministry building, now the Voss Governance Center, Sarah Patel confronts her boss. "We can't hold it together," she says. "Investors are fleeing, regulators are circling, and the people are starving." Voss doesn't look up. "Control the story," he replies. "That's all that matters. But the markets have already rewritten the ending." Sarah leaves the room, shoulders heavy, realizing she's no longer working for a company. She's guarding a crater. Luis watches the chaos unfold on a small television in his shop. Prices skyrocket. Shelves empty. The new currency with Voss's emblem is suddenly worthless. He crushes one of the coins in his palm, metal bending under anger and despair. "They bought us," he tells Sofia. "And now they're selling the pieces." She looks up, eyes wide but unblinking. "Can we buy it back?" she asks. Luis smiles weakly, shaking his head. "We never sold it, Nina. They just took the name." The first official statement from Voss Global hits the feeds. Temporary liquidity reallocation. Operations remain stable. But everyone knows it's a lie. On the balcony of his tower, Voss watches as power grids flicker across the city below. The empire he built on algorithms and ambition begins to crumble like wet paper. He whispers to himself, "I didn't lose a nation. I lost belief." The camera lingers as he turns away from the skyline, his reflection fading into the dark glass. Two silhouettes, both hollow, both gone. The crisis hits with surgical precision. Asteris banks shut down within an hour. Cash machines display unavailable. Supermarkets lock their doors. Across trading floors, investors watch a sea of red drown their screens. The empire that once symbolized innovation now becomes a contagion. Voss sits in silence as the numbers collapse. There's no call to make, no market to move. For the first time, he realizes that owning everything means having no one left to blame. Outside, the city trembles beneath the weight of its own illusion. Maya's camera shakes as she moves through the chaos. Streets fill with desperate citizens waving old flags, chanting, demanding food instead of reform. She films a woman trading a wedding ring for rice, a man burning Voss global ideas for warmth. The footage is raw, uncut, unbearable. And yet she keeps filming. History doesn't need heroes. She whispers into the mic. It just needs witnesses. Behind her, smoke rises from the finance ministry, turning the sky the color of rust. Sarah Patel gathers what remains of the board in a shattered conference room. We need to dissolve, she says, voice cracking. Transfer power back to the provisional government. What's left of it? The others stare blankly. They know there's no government, no currency, no nation anymore. Only debts, systems, and silence. Sarah glances at the empty seat at the head of the table where Voss once sat, then whispers, "He bought a nation. And we sold the soul that came with it." Louise and Sophia walk the empty market square, their bread cart gone, their savings worthless. Yet amidst ruin, Sophia hums softly. A tune her mother once sang. Louis stops, listening, tears mixing with dust. Around them, silence settles like ash. For the first time, there are no banners, no slogans, no emblems. Just people, stripped of currency, rediscovering value in one another. Louis kneels and says, "We survived every buyer. Now we belong to ourselves." Sophia smiles faintly, holding his hand tighter. Night falls again over the city that once had a price tag. Voss walks through his office one last time, the echo of footsteps against glass and marble. He stops before the window, looking out at a skyline gone dark. The empire is gone, dissolved in a cloud of zeros and lost faith. He removes his cufflinks, the last symbols of his power, and places them on the desk. "All assets revert to nothing," he murmurs. His reflection stares back, not as a titan, but as a man who mistook possession for purpose. Weeks pass. The world recalibrates in silence. Governments hold emergency summits rewriting trade maps once built around Astera's promise. Voss Global is declared insolvent, its assets scattered across 10 countries, its name already spoken like a cautionary myth. Reporters camp outside Voss's tower, but the man himself hasn't been seen in days. Some say he fled. Others say he stayed behind, haunting the ruins of his empire. But the truth is quieter. He's watching, unseen, as a new order rises from the dust of his grand delusion. Maya's documentary airs worldwide. It isn't slick or polished, just raw footage of Astera's fall, stitched with moments of humanity, a baker sharing his last loaf, children rebuilding a flag, workers cleaning shattered glass. Her narration cuts through the noise. We tried to buy the future, but the only thing worth owning was what we'd already lost: each other. Critics call it the most important film of the decade. She ignores them all, sitting alone on her balcony, watching the first sunrise that doesn't feel like a headline. In a quiet government office repurposed from an old Voss facility, Sarah Patel faces an interim council of citizens. "We're starting over," she tells them. No shareholders, no hierarchy, just accountability. For the first time, her words aren't rehearsed. They're believed. Outside, workers repaint the building's sign, People's Assembly of Astera. Sarah watches through the window. Tears forming. She once built numbers. Now she builds trust. And though the future remains uncertain, this feels like wealth. Real wealth. Luis returns to the market square with Sophia. The bread cart is rebuilt, this time painted with bright colors. Coins have no meaning here anymore. Trade runs on trust and gratitude. Sophia counts loaves not for sale but for sharing. People laugh again, voices filling the space once haunted by silence. Luis looks up at the sky, clear, endless, unpriced, and smiles. "The country's back," he says quietly. Sophia answers, "It never left. It was just waiting for us." Voss walks alone through the remnants of his headquarters. Dust settles over broken screens and silent corridors. He picks up a cracked tablet, its black display reflecting his face. For the first time, there's no data, no numbers, just silence. He steps outside into the sunlight, the first he's felt in months, and breathes deeply. Somewhere in the distance, church bells ring, and the city hums with quiet resilience. The world has moved on without him. He smiles faintly, almost peacefully, and whispers, "Finally, something I can't own." Months pass. The markets that once ruled the world now whisper from the margins. Astera has become a case study in rebirth. Its people trading through community banks and shared trusts. Voss lives quietly in a rented apartment, overlooking the same skyline he once owned. Each morning he walks past a newsstand, displaying his own face beneath the headline. The man who bought a nation. He doesn't flinch anymore. Guilt has dulled into understanding. He once thought power was measured in ownership. Now he knows real wealth lies in consequence. Maya finds him by accident, sitting alone in a small riverside cafe, sketching figures in a notebook. She approaches cautiously, camera still in her bag. "I didn't think you'd stay," she says. Voss smiles faintly. "Running didn't work out for me." Silence lingers. She asks, "Why did you do it?" He pauses, staring at the water. "Because I could," he admits, "and because no one stopped me." Maya studies him, searching for remorse, but finds something else. A tired man learning to live without control. Sarah Patel now leads Astera's reconstruction committee. Her days are long, her desk cluttered with reports written not in jargon but in promises. When asked why she stayed, she replies, "Someone has to rebuild trust, or history will start charging interest again." She visits old Voss facilities and turns them into schools, community kitchens, and trade centers. She doesn't erase the past, she repurposes it. Even the building that once held the Voss Global logo now bears a mural of the people who survived it. Louis and Sophia's bakery thrives again, but it's more than a shop. It's a gathering place. Every evening, workers, students, and elders share bread and stories. No contracts, no brands, no balance sheets, just laughter and community. Luis keeps one of the old Voss coins on the counter as a reminder. "This bought nothing," he tells customers, "but it taught everything." Sophia, now a teenager, writes their names on each loaf sold. Proof that ownership can be personal, not possessive. That night, Voss walks through the streets of Astera. He sees faces, not data points. He buys a loaf of bread, signs it quietly with his name, and leaves it on a park bench for someone else. For the first time, his gesture isn't a transaction. It's surrender. He looks up at the stars, uncounted, unnowned, infinite. The wind carries faint laughter from the square. Somewhere a church bell rings and the sound feels like absolution. He smiles, not in triumph but in peace, whispering to himself, "I finally gave something back." Years later, Astera stands renewed. Streets once cracked by despair now hum with the rhythm of rebuilding. Markets thrive, not in speculation but in exchange of craft, art, and community. Tourists come not to see skyscrapers but stories. The people of Astera speak of the past without bitterness, as if the nation itself learned to forgive. The story of the man who bought them has become a lesson in every classroom. Value, teachers say, isn't what you hold, it's what you share. The empire that fell gave birth to something rarer: balance. Maya stands on a small stage at the Astera Film Forum. Her documentary, The Price of Everything, plays on a screen behind her. The audience, students, workers, leaders, listens in silence. "This isn't about one man," she says softly. "It's about all of us when we forget what matters." Applause follows, not thunderous, but sincere. Later, a child asks her, "Do you think he was evil?" Maya smiles gently. "No," she says, "just mistaken." The child nods as though understanding something only the young can: how easily power can lose its way. Sarah Patel signs the final decree, restoring Astera's full sovereignty. No corporations, no intermediaries, no debt obligations. "A nation should never be collateral," she says to the gathered press. Outside, a crowd waits, cheering not for her, but for themselves. In her office, the old Voss Global plaque rests on the wall, cracked but intact, a reminder of how close they came to selling their future. Sarah gazes at it briefly before turning away, whispering, "Never again." Louise and Sophia watch the sunset from the bakery rooftop. The city stretches before them, alive, honest, unnowned. Sophia, now grown, prepares to leave for university. Scholarship earned through her writing about the revolution. Louis hands her a wrapped loaf of bread. "For the road," he says, smiling. She hugs him tightly. "For the memory," she replies. As she disappears into the golden light, Louis stands alone, eyes glistening, heart full. Around him, the aroma of baking fills the air, warm and infinite. Somewhere beyond the city, Alexander Voss tends a small vineyard overlooking the sea. Time has softened him. His hands, once accustomed to contracts, now care for soil. A boy from the nearby village helps him harvest grapes, unaware of the man's past. As the sun dips into the horizon, Voss pours 2 glasses of wine and toasts quietly to what can't be owned. The boy laughs without understanding, and Voss smiles, content that he doesn't need to. The camera drifts upward, the sea shimmering, the vineyard glowing, while his voice fades into the wind. "A nation is a soul. You can only buy its silence, never its spirit."